Hello, you welcome to my class. I'm Ifa Chimba. Our topic for today is basic stitches. And by the end of the lesson, you should be able to mention the two main types of stitches. 2. Group stitches according to their functions. 3. Explain the functions of the various stitches. And then 4. Make specimens of at least 3 of the stitches you have learned. Let's define stitches. They are patterns we see on an article when a threaded needle is passed through it. They hold pieces of fabric together. We have two main types. These are temporary and permanent. What are temporary stitches then? These are stitches that are removed. These are stitches that are removed after permanent stitches are made, and as such, a soft cotton thread is used. We have some examples of temporary stitches here. The first one is tacking. Tacking, we have several types. We have even and uneven tacking. With even tacking, the intervals are the same. And with the uneven tacking, the intervals are not the same. The stitches too are not the same. What we see here is even tacking. Next is the tailor's tacking. This is the type of tacking used by tailors when making garments. They usually cut the threads over here to trace the pattern markings onto the other fabric they are tracing it onto. The next is basting, which is also known as diagonal tacking. This can be used to hold pleats in place. It can also be used to hold two pieces of fabric together. Let's say the main fabric for a garment and the lining you are using inside. Now let's come to permanent stitches. They are stitches that holds articles together until it lasts. And we have three types, which are joining, knitting, and decorative stitches. We'll start by looking at joining stitches. Joining stitches hold pieces of fabric together. And the examples we have here are running, back stitches, overcasting, over sewing, machine stitches, just to mention a few. Let's look at the pictures. This is running stitches. It looks just like tacking, but then running stitches are smaller, and these remain in the article for as long as it lasts. We can use this stitch decoratively by adding another stitch or another thread, passing it through it. This is back stitches. This stitch is used in place of machine stitches. When you don't have a sewing machine, you can use this to secure your parts of your garment together. And then this is straight machine stitches. We have other examples which includes overcasting and over sewing. Overcasting is made on a single fabric or a double fabric, and it is worked from left to right on the wrong side, whereas over sewing is worked on the right side to join pieces of fabric together. It can be used in patchwork as well. The next is knitting stitches. Remember, we are looking at the types of permanent stitches. We started with joining stitches. An example is running, the slide we just left. Now we are looking at knitting stitches. These are used to hold hems and turnings and for preventing raw edges of garments or articles from fraying. As such, you are supposed to use a thread that matches the fabric. A strong cotton thread, of course. Examples, we have hemming, herringbone or fishbone stitch. We have loop or blanket stitch. We have overcasting. Overcasting, remember, is a joining stitch. and it appears here as well. Here are some of the examples. Hemming. We have several types of hemming. We have several types of hemming. We have hem stitching, slip hemming, slant hemming, and many more. This is the fishbone or the herringbone stitch. And we have loop stitches over here too. The third group of permanent stitches is known as decorative stitches or embroidery stitches. These are made in articles to make them look attractive or beautiful. They can also serve as joining stitches. Some too serve as knitting stitches. A stranded cotton is used in making them. This is a picture of stranded cotton. You have them in different colors. Examples of decorative stitches are chain, satin, stem, French knot, lazy daisy, cross stitch, herringbone, loop or blanket. Now let's look at the pictures we have here. This is chain stitches. And in making it, you pass the thread from the wrong side to the right side by making a double back stitch. And then you pass the thread through the fabric, the tip of the thread through the fabric to form a loop as you pass it under you pass the thread under it, and you pull out the needle, but not too tightly, as you see over here. Put needle back into the fabric inside the first link and bring it out and form loops as before. This is how it is made. The next is the stem stitch. Stem stitch is used to draw the outline of a design. And to work it, let's see the markings we have here. We have A, then B to C. This is the process. You start from A, you pass the needle through B, and to C in the middle. When you pull the needle over here, you bring it to D over here. You bring it to E, sorry, and then you pull it from D. Next is the satin stitch. Let's look at the outline. The stitches we see here is the stem stitch. So as I explained earlier, the stem stitch is drawn, is made, and then we fill it with the satin. Let's look at this side too. It's the same stitch that is being made, but then let's look at the outline. It is chain stitches we see over here. So chain and satin stitch, chain and stem stitches are used to draw the outline of a design, and then we use the satin stitch to fill the design. Another decorative stitch known as French knots. Let's look at how it is made. You secure the thread at the wrong side of the garment or the article. Bring it to the right side. Put the edge of the needle in the fabric and wind the thread round it several times, depending on how thick you want it to be. It can be twice, it can be thrice, it can be 4 times or 5 times. And holding the stranded cotton on the needle, you pull the needle gently. Pull the needle and then put the needle back into the garment or the fabric. Then you have something like this. This is a French knot. You can do several on a garment or a fabric, depending on what you want to use it for. Then we have lazy daisy. This is made by, it's just like the chain stitches, but then instead of forming another loop on top, sorry, you end at the wrong side. So you begin by bringing the needle up from the back through the fabric. Put the needle down next to where it just came up. Do not pull the thread all the way through to the back. Leave enough thread to make the loop of the daisy petal. So that is it. Next is catch stitch or cross stitch. It looks like X, 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 X. Then we have feather stitch. To make the feather stitch, you can draw 3 or 4 lines on a fabric with a tailor's chalk to illustrate the stitch. Bring the needle on center line. Take it across to the line on the right side. Bring the needle again to the center line. Take the needle down to the line on the left and then back on the center line. Make sure the thread goes under the needle. As we see over here, the direction of the needle shows it. Okay, now let's look at the rules for making stitches. We have learnt the different types of stitches, so you have to choose the correct stitch for the work you are going to do, be it temporary, joining, decorative, or neatening stitch. Point 2. Use the correct size of needle and the right type of thread for the fabric. We have different types of needles, different sizes of needles. Some are small, some are very big. So, depending on what you are going to do, choose the type of needle. If it's for embroidery or decorative work, use embroidery needle. And then the right type of thread over here means that is it stranded cotton you are going to use? Is it soft cotton thread you are going to use? Is it woolen yarn you are going to use, or strong cotton thread? You are never supposed to use a knot for fastening on stitches because knots can tear the fabric. It can create holes in the fabric or the garment. So never use a knot for fastening stitches. Instead, you use stitches to fasten it. You get to that. Then you wear a thimble to protect your finger from being pricked with the needle or by the needle. Wear a thimble on the middle finger of the hand you are using for stitching. Then you work one stitch at a time. If you are working temporary stitches, make sure you finish with temporary stitches before you move on to hemming or to herringbone stitch. Do not mix them up. Work on one stitch at a time. And then when you are stitching with a needle, threaded needle, the length of the thread should be from the tip of your middle finger to your elbow to prevent the thread from tying knots and frustrating you. I told you that you are not supposed to tie a knot when you are making stitches. You must always start with a double stitch for temporary stitches. If you are making temporary stitches, you begin with a double stitch. And if it is a permanent stitch you are making, you begin with a double back stitch. The back stitch I showed you over there. You begin with a double back stitch. Okay, that brings us to the end of our lesson for today. But we have learned a lot. We have learned the definition for stitches. We have learned the types of stitches and their functions and how they are made. So I would want you to make samples of the stitches on specimen pieces of fabric. Use them to make samples of the stitches for assessment. Thank you.